Welcome back. For this video, for this series on making cabinets, we're going to do drawers. Now, drawers can be anything from a regular drawer that you pull out, with a drawer front and a handle. It could also be a pull-out that's found behind a door. So you open a door of a cabinet and then there's a tray that rolls out. Or it can be a trash bin or, and many other things. But they're all built the same for my system. So for this system, we make everything out of 1/2-inch birch plywood. So here's a big chunk of it. Now, birch plywood either comes 8-foot lengths or, in this case, 5-foot lengths, but it's pre-finished. It's already shiny, it repels water and so forth, so we don't have to spray anything. That's why I like it. Now, I mentioned before, this one is exactly 60 inches long. And when it came, it was also 60 inches wide. We've just made some cutoffs of it already. But that's important to know so we can get the most out of it without wasting a lot. So on the cut list that you're given, and they're all going to look a little bit different, but I know from my cut list that I have one drawer that is 6 inches wide or tall. That's the height of the drawer. Would be the width of this board, same thing. I have another one that's 4, and then one or two of them that are 3.5 to finish that list. So how do we do it? So here's the theory behind it. Always cut the widest drawer, the tallest drawer first. The reason is because if I make my cuts and then I'm going to cut my lengths out of it, if I have extra of my 6-inch drawer, if I have extra, I can cut that piece now down to 4 inches and I can still use it. But if I start at my 3.5 and I have extra 3.5, I can't use it for any other drawers. It's too small. So start with the big ones and work your way down so we can continuously use the leftover pieces. So all right, next bit of math. I have my sizes here. Here's my lengths for this 6-inch drawer. I need 2 pieces, and that's my left and right side, not the front and back yet, my left and right that are 21 inches long. All right, so I can take my tape measure. 21 plus 21 is 42, so I'm already out here to 42 inches. This is how much I'm gonna have left. My front and back pieces are 15 3/8. So let's say about 16 inches. Let's just round it up a little bit. So at 42, if I go 16 more inches, I'm not going to have enough left to make another piece because I need a front and a back. So that means I'll need to set the table saw to 6 inches wide, right there. And I need to make 2 cuts, 2 strips. That way I have enough to cut my pieces out. And I know I'm only going to have 1 piece of the second strip I'm going to use. Then what do I do with the rest? I'm going to cut it down to 4 and use it for my next parts, whatever is listed here. Then I'll determine how many 4s I need and then 3.5s and so forth as we go. So cut out 2 strips. Now we're going to cut those strips to whatever length that they need to be from the cut list. One thing I forgot to mention is when you're cutting that first cut, your strips out of your actual length, please make absolutely sure that the grain is always going this way. If you have it turned the other way and the grain is now going this direction, I'm not going to use it. While I may be able to make a drawer out of it, it'll look ridiculous. It doesn't sand right. The top edge is rounded and it's wrong. Okay? So make sure your first cuts go with the grain. Now here on the chop saw, we're going to cut things to whatever length it says on your cut list. In this case, I need 2 pieces that are 21. So I'll set 21. And I need 2 more pieces that are 15 3/8. Now we're going to use the same system here. I'm going to cut the long ones first, and whatever's left, I can cut smaller ones out of. I always tend to use that system just because it minimizes waste. Now 15 3/8. So here are all the pieces for this drawer box, and this is what I have left. Now obviously if I have more 6-inch drawers, I would use this and just cut more pieces. In this case though, I'm done with my 6 inches, so I'm gonna take this back to the table saw, cut a 4-inch piece, and then come back here and start cutting those lengths. The next step is to come to the table saw and to put in a stacked dado blade. Now, as you can see, there are 5 different blades. As I spin, there's an inside blade, a second inside blade, and then there's the third one right there, and 2 outside blades. So this stacked blade has 5 blades. Now I only need a 1/2 inch of them. That's about 3/4. The reason is because my 1/2 inch boards are there. I need to cover up about a 1/4 inch of it. And I'm simply doing that because it's easier than trying to get it exactly at a 1/2 inch. I'd rather overcut. The height of this blade is basically your best guess. I'm putting this piece of scrap here just so I can see about where the height of the tooth is. And that's gonna be, if you need to raise or lower it, it's just the handle in the front. Get it as close as you can by eye, and then we'll take some test cuts to double check that. Then we'll move this in and get that side-by-side measurement just right. We also put on this cover for our fence. Because I need to remove a 1/4 inch more of that blade, it's going to stick underneath this fence. I don't want it to scrape up my good fence, so this one's already been used many times. Now, how do I know how far over to line that up? Take a piece of scrap 1/2 inch. You probably had some left when you were cutting lengths. Simply set it right here on the side and down, and I want to see that the very edge of this blade is flush with this face. So I'm just going to nudge the table saw fence over until I can feel or see, either one, that that blade and this face are the same plane. That means from this face here to the edge of the blade is the thickness of that, and that's what I want. And we're doing what's called a rabbet joint. You're also going to need to grab the crosscut guide right here, or the miter gauge is what it's called, and it slips into this groove right here. Now we can make a test cut and see how close we are. And we take a look at it. Is that halfway down the board? It's close, but it actually needs to come a little bit more on this layer, about halfway through this center layer. So I need to raise the blade a little bit. Fine. Turn the handle, I don't know, a 1/4 turn maybe, and then we'll just make another cut. Now, as far as the distance from here to here, just take one of your boards and stick it in there, and then feel right here. I feel a little bit of overlap, not very much, and that's not bad. So that might be right. I'd prefer just a hair of overlap than the opposite, than under. And so I might keep that there, but we still need to get the height right. So I've raised the blade just a hair, cut it again until you get it right. We've got the blade set and the fence in the right place. I've got my crosscut glide in there. So what we're doing now is take all of the 21-inch boards, usually the biggest ones, not always, but they are going to be 21 for the glides that we use. And what we're going to do is put a rabbet in both ends. So you're going to put it down like that. Now I know it's hard to see on the camera, but I'm looking at the gap between this board and this fence, and it's a little bit off. There's a bit of a gap here. So I'm going to loosen this handle and twist slightly until it is completely tight against the fence. And that's important, otherwise the drawer will wobble just a little bit. So now that I know that's tight, we have safety glasses on, and we run it across the blade, then flip it around and do it again. Hold it down. Flip it around, do the same thing. And you're going to do this to all of the 21-inch boards. Now that all your 21s are cut with rabbets, I've removed the 3 center blades. So now there's just the outside blades, and those together give me a 1/4 inch groove. Now we have to figure out the distance here to here. I do not have to worry about height because I didn't change the height from making the rabbets to this cut. They need to be the same anyway. So what we're going to do is, I'm just going to tell you that it needs to be exactly 7/16 from the inside of this to the inside of that. Now I cannot use the tape measure that's on the table saw. I have to use a tape in my hand. Because this blade is doubled up, it's normal 1/8 of an inch thick, it's 1/4. So my tape measure on the saw is all messed up. So just use one of your tape measures, and I want from this face to the inside, a little less than 1/2 an inch. In this case, it is 7/16. Right there, I can get it right on and lock it in. Sometimes when you lock the blade, the fence will shift a little bit, so keep playing with that until you get it exactly right. This is really important for the hardware we have to put on later on. You may have also noticed that I left the cover of this off. Since there's a gap there, I don't need it, and it gives you a better cut because there's nothing hollow, no hollows in this fence. So in this case, we're going to cut the 221s again. This time, those rabbets we cut before go down, and either one of the edges, it doesn't matter, goes against the fence, and we're going to cut across. Again, make sure to hold it down on the table. That groove is going to be for the bottom. We're going to put in a little later. When those are done, take one of your front back pieces, just one. This is now the front. Now the reason we didn't cut the back is because we're actually going to cut the bottom part off up to that groove. We're going to remove some material from the bottom, so it only is from here to the top of the groove. That will be the back. That will allow me, when the drawer is put together, to slip the bottom in already as the box is made. So I've made the box, I can slide the bottom in past the back piece into the groove. You'll see that as we continue on. What I need to do now is take one of those pieces that has the groove in it and measure. I just want to measure from the top to the top of that groove. And what I'm coming up with is about 5 5/16. That's fine. 5 5/16 to the top of that groove. So then I set this table saw to 5 5/16, which is right there. Lock it in. That will remove the bottom piece and the groove itself where it would be on this one. Now remember, depending on the height of your board, that 5 5/16 is going to be different. Next step, we come over to this round router table, and you're going to come to the one that is labeled bull nose bit. It's right on top right here. It says 1/2 inch only. This is our 1/2 inch boards right here. All the pieces, regardless front, back, sides, they're all going to be done on this bull nose. The idea behind it, of course, is this is the bottom right here with this groove, which means this is the top edge. So I'll flip it around. Top edge is what everyone sees and what you feel when you pull the drawer out. We want to lightly round that off. That's what a bull nose is. We're just rounding the top. Now the way that this is set up, it doesn't matter if you put it through this way or this way, but you do need to make sure that the top edge is what's against the blade. And with this, again, it's going to be throwing pieces of sawdust out. It may startle you because it is hitting your fingers, but I promise it's not going to hurt you. So it just is a bit surprising. Turn it on and go through the router, but try not to stop. As soon as you stop, you'll get a burn because there's too much friction. So go slow and take your time, but don't stop in the middle of a cut. Nice and smooth. Now you saw me take the edge of the board and kind of scrape it off. All I'm doing is taking the sawdust off the table. If I have a mound of sawdust on here and I put a board on top, all of a sudden that round over is not going to be centered. It's going to look a little bit weird. So make sure, I mean, obviously don't use your hand and go under the bit. Please don't. Use the board, go right here, or blow it away with your breath, whatever works for you. Now that we have the drawer box parts all done, it's time to do the bottom. So the bottom again is made of this white melamine that's only white on one side, 1/4 inch thick, the thin stuff. So this is just a piece I found that would do the job. A lot of times you're going to have tons of drawers with long strips that we're cutting either on the panel saw or on a table saw, it doesn't matter. But the sheet that I give you will give you the exact dimensions of that bottom. In this case, it's 15 3/8, which was the length of our short sides, and by 20 3/4. It's all written, but on the width, that 15 3/8, I tend to remove maybe a 32nd of an inch more. So it's a hair on the small side. I found that it fits in the groove a little bit better. So I'll find 15 3/8 and then just take off 1/2 of a 16th, which is a 32nd of an inch, and then make your cut. The other dimension was 20 3/4. Now when I just go right on the money. Now that we have all the parts, now it's time to build the boxes. But keep something in mind. When you're doing drawer boxes, especially for a full kitchen, you'll have tons of drawers, quite a few of them. So I would do all the processes at the same time. Cut all the strips at once, then cut all lengths at once, then go to the table saw to cut all the rabbets at once, and so forth. When you're cutting backs, cut all of those at the same time so that you can go through this process a lot more efficiently. But now we've got our pieces, so I'll put my 2 short ones on the side. I've got my right and left, here they are. And the grooves, of course, are the bottom, so I put them together like that. So here's how I build drawers, and it works best for me. Bottle of glue, and you're gonna have a staple gun with short staples in it. You just put a line of glue there, and we put these two together, just like that. Now the key here is that the joint on the inside needs to be tight, no gaps. So hold it together nice and tight with your fingers and put a staple in. Now, the bottom, it's hard for me to hold it and staple with my right hand. So I'll grab this and actually lift the back up a little bit. That puts pressure on this. Gravity will push that down and tighten that bottom corner. Makes my life a lot easier. And since it's a taller 6-inch drawer, I'll use 3 staples. For a short 3.5-inch drawer, something, I'll only use 2. For a tall 10-inch drawer, for a really deep one, I'll use 4. It just depends. But 3 is good for this one. Then we do the other side. Same thing, put a line of glue here, stick it in right there, and do the top first. Hold it in with my hand, staple. Then kind of lift it and let it tighten itself, and then shoot. Now, one last thing. It's hard to see on the camera, I realize that, but notice that I'm not shooting very close to the bottom edge. I want to stay away from the groove that the bottom is going to go in. I don't need a staple in that groove because it's going to get in the way and I'll have to rip it out. So the bottom one, keep it about 1 inch or a little more off of the base. The top one's fine, I don't care. Middle one, wherever. But keep that bottom one off of the base. Now I'm going to flip it all the way over so it's upside down because this board is shorter than this one. But the tops line up, not the bottoms. I need this to line up with the top. That's why I flipped it over. So now I'm just going to put glue in this one here and there, and then put it upside down so the rounded side is down on the table, and line that up in my rabbets. Then do the same process. Hold it tight at the top, kind of pull and lift so you can see the front is lifting up. 3 shots, and reverse and do the other side. Lift up. There's my box, all set and done. Now we take your bottom, and if everything was cut correctly, it should fit in. Just like that. It needs to go in the groove, so you may need to push, and there it goes into the groove, and it's in. Remember, the white side goes in the box. Keep the white side in. You should see the dark side on the outside of the drawer, right? Last step. I don't want this thing sliding back out. You saw how easy it slid in. We're going to staple into this back through the bottom, right there. Now remember, I've only got a 1/2 inch to hit, not the 3/4 that we're used to on cabinet boxes. So make sure to be careful. And then on the very end staple, the one I'm going to put in right here. Let me come a little closer to the camera. The hardware that we use for these drawers requires me to drill a hole in the end, right about here, into there. So if I put a staple there, I'm gonna have to drill through the staple, which really dulls my bit. So please put your last staple about 1.5 inches or so in from the edge. That's what I did on this side. That's what I normally do. That way I can drill, not ruin my bit. Drawer box is completely put together. The only thing left to put on it is a little bit of hardware, the brackets. That we'll do a little later. Here are the brackets I mentioned. You just come in a bag, you just rip open the bag and out they come. They come with their own pack of screws. So we just open that up and dump it on the bottom of the drawer. Now remember, this is the front of the drawer, the one that sticks up. The one that doesn't is the back. Now these brackets go on so these white handles face each other. So in this case, I need to flip them around, of course. This is how I would release the drawer and get the drawer out, but we'll deal with that a little later. But it overlaps the edge, and that overlaps the edge. Now, this amount right here is a little bigger than 1/2 inch, so I can feel it. You know, it sticks over the edge a little bit. I don't like that very much. The reason I don't like it is when I put a drawer front on this, that overhang tends to tip the drawer front out, so it's not laying flat against this. So first, find this drill bit. It's called a VIX bit. There's a drill bit inside right there, and you can see it's on a spring. It forces the bit to be centered in the hole, and I want it to be right on the money. So I use my thumb, push the bracket back so it's flush right here. This is flat with that. Then I use my VIX bit right there and drill down and in and do it again. And just kind of get rid of that sawdust a little bit. Then I just use a regular Phillips driver, use the screws that are included, and gently put it in. If you ram it in too hard, you may strip it out. We don't want that either. You may notice that some of this plywood will crack a little. That's totally normal. Don't worry about it. Plywood tends to do that when you put a screw in it. So then we repeat the other side. Hold it tight against the side. Push that back so it's flush with your thumb. VIX bit. Brush that away. Then use 2 more screws to put that in, right there. Nice and gentle, don't strip it out. And then these are in. Now you'll have 2 extra screws every time. They're meant to go right here and right there. Obviously, it's meant for a thicker drawer bottom. These screws would poke right through, so please don't stick them there. Just save them for the next one. We'll have some extra screws. I save them for other hardware pieces. But for now, the drawer is as complete as can be until we're ready to install it in the cabinet. For us, the drawer glides that we use here are undermount glides that are also soft close, which means, of course, I pull it out and then slam it shut and it slowly eases in. So let me turn that around. You can see that it's slowly coming in. So that also allows you to make the drawers a little bit bigger and they're a little more child-proof. Now here's how you put them in. First, let me show you the plan. So in this case, here's the plan of the drawer box that I'm putting glides in for. Here are the numbers that you're going to need: 6, 7.5, 7.5, 9.5. Now that represents what's called a nominal size. If there was 0 gap between drawer front to the next drawer front, that's the size that they would be. Now of course the drawer fronts are a little smaller so they don't hit each other, but these are the measurements you need to put the glides in the right place. So then put that away. You grab a tape measure and a pencil and you make lines in the cabinet. Hook at the top. Don't put it on the inside, that won't work. Just hook it at the top. The first one was 6, so I put a little line at 6. The next one was 7.5, so add 7.5 to that, which is 13.5. The next one down was another 7.5, and that's 21. And then the last one was 9.5. So if I measure from the bottom up to that bottom line, that is 9.5, and I've got it right. Now, there are cabinets that have only 3 drawers in them, or different numbers of drawers, or even different sizes, but the technique is the same. As long as I know how big that drawer front is, as if there were no gaps, so go with me on that, then I can put the line in the right place. That's where the gap is. All I need to do now is put the glide above that line. If here's the line right here and I put the glide right on it, then the next drawer front down is going to be hit by this glide. It's no good. So the glide has to go above that line. Now, so in this case, we're always going to keep the front. These are the holes we're going to use, and you can use the bottom ones as if leveling it out is needed. So we put it up, and we're going to use the 4th hole in. that matches up with these front holes. That fourth little hole right there, okay, on this end, 4 in. All right, so it's gonna go right there. Now, the screws we use, okay, they look like that. They look a little funny, they don't have sharp tips, things like that. They're called posy screws. Okay, and I'll pull one out, and that's what it looks like. So they're enlarged, they're quite big, and they're meant to fit into the pre-drilled holes here that we made earlier. But they also have a different kind of bit that we need to screw them in. Now this particular driver has a black line around it. That's how you can tell the difference between one of the other ones that we use that are yellow. So just pop out that tip, put the new one in, and we're good to go. Now it comes the tricky part where it helps if someone's holding it. You just lift it up into place and then put a screw right there. Okay, don't worry if it falls, that's all right, it always does, it's heavy that way. But the glide is above the line. Now because we drilled the holes in the back of this cabinet a little further in than the front, that allows us to line up the back holes. So I don't have to guess at where it's level. Just lift it up and count down how many holes to the proper height. I can just put my body in there and right there and screw it in, and it's in. And I know it's level because these holes were drilled correctly, all referenced on the bottom. Then I would repeat this exact same process for the next one down, the next one down, and the one on the very bottom. Put that one as low as you can, the bottom holes. And that's for a 4-drawer cabinet. For a standard cabinet, which means it only has 1 drawer and 1 door, this is it. I'd put in this one and the one on the opposite side, and then a door and shelf would be underneath, and that's all there is to it. This is where the drawings come in handy, so you know what it requires as far as drawer glides. The last thing we need to do to put these drawers in is we need to drill a hole in the back. Now to figure out where that hole needs to be, slide it in and you'll feel it kind of tighten up right here. Push through that until it goes all the way in. Don't shove it yet. Now there's a bit of a gap on both sides and it'll shift left and right about 1/4 of an inch. So center that as best you can. It doesn't need to be perfect, but get as close as you can. Center that and just hit it with your hand. There. The reason we do that is because on the back of these glides, it may be hard to see, but right here, there's a pin that sticks into the drawer. The whole idea of that is that the back of the drawer won't ever lift up and out, so it holds it steady in there. But what I've done is, it's hard to see, but right there, there's a dent in the back. Now all we have to do, take a drill bit. This one has a collar that's put on it so that it only goes a certain depth. I don't want to drill through the whole back. I just want to drill into it. So all you're going to do is right on that spot, drill in until it doesn't drill anymore. Right there. Blow that all away. And then do the exact same thing, line it up, and it should lock in. Now it'll pull out. Right back in, it's nice and soft close. That is the same system to use whether it's a drawer or more drawers or pullouts, which I have over here.